Because the weird thing about a mistake is like the further away from it you get, the more it looks like you just made a left turn, whereas you thought you were making a right. You ended up somewhere else. You came out of it. Like I was always, when I was younger, I was so afraid to fail. And I'm saying when I was younger so that I can pretend that I'm over that and then I have no fear of failure now, which isn't even remotely true.
Welcome to Thriving in the Wild. I'm Taylor Stern. I'm sharing what happens when you step into your vulnerability, face the hard things, celebrate your journey, and giving you your weekly reminder that no one has it all figured out. It's time to thrive. Let's go. I am such a fan of today's guest, and I have been for quite some time. You might know Katie Nolan from her time as a host on Fox Sports, or now as the host of Always Late on ESPN. In our talk, Katie shares some empowering truths, including how she got discovered by the big networks, inventing what we called troll math to beat the online haters, and how when she embraced her own mental health, it skyrocketed her success. It's a jam-packed episode, but if you get anything from this, I hope it's that even though it was sometimes uncomfortable, her ability to stubbornly follow her own wild instincts always led her right. Check it out. Somebody connected us via email in college, and you sent me the nicest email.
Did I?
Yes, it was so nice. And it just basically was like, hey, next time you're in New York, this is when you were filming Garbage Time, and you're like, next time you're in New York, come see us. And I was like, oh, best friends. Like,
yeah, that's us. We're best friends.
It was meant so much to me.
Really? That means a lot to me. I think like if ever I hear somebody say like this person, just shoot them an email, I'm like, that's so easy. It means so much to me that there are young women in the world who like think that I can in any way offer any sort of advice or guidance, because to me, a person who's been with me my whole life, I'm just me. Like I don't find me all that interesting. So.
Well, and I think it's so interesting because I'm 28, and so I remember when you were first on the come up, I was like, oh my gosh, this girl's just like any of us, and she's making it, and she's doing her thing, and she's staying true to who she is, and that's why you were so appealing to me, because I didn't feel, obviously, you didn't take the regular, and I put that in quotation, path by any means. Right. I mean, if I could explain your path in just a nutshell, and you're probably like, oh, you missed about 400
No, I'm like,
things.
Please try. I can't wait to watch you try.
Well, I love to tell people you were a bartender, and then you were a YouTuber, and then I'm definitely missing things, so I'm butchering this, but this is the abbreviated version because it's like 400 encyclopedias long.
You're crushing it. You are crushing it so far.
And then you were a YouTuber, and then you were on, was it Fox Sports first that found you? And that's where I remember really following you and like, man, this girl's so funny, because you started doing the first real digital reporting, I feel like. Would you consider that true?
I don't know. I always find it weird having to saying I'm first at anything, because I really know that I couldn't have done any of this if somebody hadn't done it before me. I'm not a trailblazer. I'm sort of just like the person that's like, I also want to do that. But I think that like there certainly was this idea of like sports networks saying that they wanted to understand digital, and they seemed to think that like younger women would speak to that audience. I don't know how much of that was like planned by them or how much of whatever, but I basically was just like, if that's my way in the door, then I'm gonna like actually try to be the digital person that digital people would find interesting, not the one that like an older person thinks, like when an older person talks like a kid and is like, hello kids, what's happening? And you're like, no, that doesn't make sense. So I always just wanted to be really authentic so that I didn't feel like our digital audience felt betrayed by me. That I get on TV and then I'm like, I'm this now.
Hello, I've done my hair today.
Yes. Somebody else did my hair and my makeup and clothed me. And now I speak to you from a peak. No, I'm just like, yeah, I'm one of us and I'm here. So I just tried that.
So, and it's interesting because I wouldn't have expected that was the door you wanted to enter, because I don't know what happened before bartending. Was that the path that you wanted to go, sports broadcasting?
God. No, not even broadcasting. I mean, it's funny now because my mom's cleaning out the house I grew up in. Yeah. So because, quarantine. Everyone's got time to do stuff. And so she like sent me a whole bunch of my old stuff, and I put pen to paper a lot, I guess, when I was a kid. Like I've got just journals on journals. And like I was reading through them and I'm looking through my old school projects. And there are a lot of instances where I'm like talking about how much I like making people laugh and talking about how much I like holding a microphone and like talking about things that way. But then whenever somebody asks, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I never was like a TV star. I just was, I liked making people laugh, but it was never anything I considered what could possibly even touch my career. Which is funny now because I'm like, I probably wasted so much time if I had just been focused on what I wanted to do. But anyway, I went to school for public relations because I took one of those online tests that was like, what should your major be? And where you just answer like multiple choice questions to try to reveal something about yourself. And they said that I should major in public relations. And for some reason, I never questioned that again. I was never like, okay, so that's what one test said, but let me talk to some people who know me as a person. So I just searched for public relations schools, found the Hofstra had a really good dance program and public relations program and went there. But I had no plan. Like after college, the economy was whew, and couldn't get a job anywhere. But like I worked internships in PR and I was like, I don't really like doing this. Cause like the coolest PR is definitely cool. And that wasn't even what I wanted to do. I didn't want to do entertainment PR. I wanted to do like corporate PR. But then you start to see what it like is. And then you see what like the uncoolest PR is. And you're like, oh no, I don't like the worst days on this job are going to be bad. And I don't want that. And so then I just like, I don't know. I wanted to like write stuff. I wanted to like make people laugh. And so I started doing that because the internet was a thing and I did not have a job. And then I started working at a bar to pay bills and like blogging during the day. And then just got to a point where it was like, I'm going to try to do this, which I have to acknowledge takes a lot of privilege. Like I knew I had family that if I couldn't pay my bills, they'd be like, fine, we'll pay your rent for another month. Get your shit together, but we'll pay it. Like,
yeah.
They'd be cool with it, but, mad at me about it. So takes so much privilege to be able to have been like, I'm going to try to do this for a living. But I just like did.
So when did you decide like PR, what was the conversation like when you were like, I am leaving this internship?
Oh God. Well, so it's never as clean. Maybe it is, but in my life, it's never as clean cut as it would be in the book version of it. It's never like, and then one day I woke up and I just couldn't look myself in the mirror anymore. So I told my boss, no, at that point I had worked like 4 internships in PR with varying levels of success and varying levels of enjoyment. And then I couldn't afford to live. I had moved to New York. God, you don't need to know this, but I'd moved to New York City because my cousin was moving from California. And I stupidly moved in there thinking that I could just get a job once I got to New York City. It's very expensive to live in New York City. So I like got to a point where I needed money now. I couldn't work a cute little internship. So I worked at an Equinox selling gym memberships. And then after 6 months of that, I was like, I hate this. I'm moving back home. And like in that tumble of like, these internships are fine, but I don't really like them. I cannot find a job in this industry. I don't want to work in sales. I need to figure out like a thing so that I can push my energy in one direction instead of 19 directions. In all of that was when I was like, well, I can blog. And so I did. And like, that was when I kind of discovered that like, I don't want the PR life. Like I don't want to have to keep pushing towards that because I don't think that success there is going to feel as good as I think success should feel. Mm-hmm. And then just started, doing something that I was waking up and like wanting to do, mm-hmm. which is an amazing treat in life to be able to be like, yeah, I want to wake up and do this. But I didn't know how to run a business, so that's why I have to go work for somebody else because that stuff I'm terrible at.
So the biggest thing is then how did Fox Sports discover you?
It's the great mystery of our time because even in your perfectly sufficient summation of my career path, when you called me a YouTuber, everything in my being was like, no, because I made videos on YouTube, but like YouTuber has this attachment of like fame to it. There's an understanding that like people are interested in this person and nobody
like 1 million
Yeah,
subscribers.
nobody gave a shit about the stuff I was making. Like most videos, I was doing daily YouTube videos for a company called Guyism, who no longer exists and or is Bro Bible and or merged with Barstool. I don't know. They're all the same company. But like
Bro
I
times.
worked for this company called Guyism. I did daily videos for them, and the average video was probably getting like 2,000 hits a day, if that. Like these were not crushing. And then like I became obsessed with getting more people to watch them. So I would watch other YouTubers and be like, what are they doing that I'm not doing? So I like learned how to edit very poorly. Like I've shown editors now how I would edit my videos, and they're like, oh my God, you wasted so much time. There's hotkeys. You can do it this way. And I'm like, no, I taught myself. So nobody was watching them. And then one day I got a phone call that Fox was launching a 24-hour sports network to compete with ESPN. They had seen me on the internet and they wanted to know if I wanted a job. And I was like, what? How? It was wild. It's still wild to me. Cause I'm like, who told you? Like, I thought my mom was the only one watching these.
So you didn't have an agent?
No. And I actually got a manager just for that because I was going to have to sign a contract and I didn't really know anything about contracts. So I got this manager who was like a manager of an actual YouTuber that I really loved. And he helped me like negotiate my contract with Fox, my first contract with Fox Sports, which was for $150,000 a year. And I cried because it was so much more money than I ever thought I would see in my life. And it was crazy. I think about that now all the time, how crazy that first day was, where I was like, I'm doing this. I'm going to do this. I called my mom from the streets of New York City. And I was like, I think Fox wants me to be on TV. And she was like, well, honey, we love sports, but you don't know enough. And I was like, no, but I was like, you're right. I don't know enough. I love them. I watch them. I don't know enough. And then, I remember in an interview, one of the interviews I had to go maybe be on the show, somebody asked if I liked sports. And I was like, yes, of course I like sports. Yeah. I'm here interviewing for this position. And they were like, well, yeah, it's just social media and reading tweets. You don't have to know anything. And so I called my mom and I'm like, Ma, I know more than enough. We're going to be fine. Like
we're Gucci.
I'm doing this job because that person thought I might not like sports. I have to go do this job.
Did you feel like they thought that because they're like, oh, she's just a pretty face?
I have no idea.
To read the
you know
tweets?
What? Sometimes in life, it pays to not ask yourself questions you don't want the answer to. In that room, I was like, I don't know why you think I'm not a sports fan. I don't know why you would want somebody on your network who isn't passionate about sports, something that a large portion of the population, like surely if you liked me enough and I didn't like sports, you could find a me who does. Like I didn't want to investigate any further. I was like, I'm just going to go out and prove that I like sports, which is why that Crowd Goes Wild gig went from being Katie sits on the couch alone and reads tweets to Katie sits at the desk and talks actual sports with the rest of the panel, which was too many people on a panel. I'll be honest. We knew that, but it still, somehow worked, or it didn't, because it got canceled.
And I feel like the first thing I remember when you started those gigs was that you were so honest. And not to say that that was a bad thing in any means. I felt like that was an excellent thing, but I felt like that's what really got you trending, because they're like, what? This woman's speaking her mind? Like, she feels this way? And I'll never forget, it was when I first started with the Cowboys and you were speaking about Greg Hardy. And that was my first year with the Cowboys. And I'm like, oh, Greg Hardy. Like, it was so difficult to be on the team side and to like separate like the personal and all this stuff, because everything you were saying, I felt, but to try to like agree was so conflicted via social. It was just really complicated, but I really did appreciate that, because I felt like you opened the door in a sense where it's like, oh, we can like say our mind on these issues, like the Ray Rice. The Ray Rice was the first one that I ever felt like really took that detour of people have to speak up.
That video was like me talking to a producer, this guy named Greg Groggle, who used to work at Embassy Row, which was where this is such an annoying conversation, but Embassy Row was the production company we worked out of that produced Crowd Goes Wild and eventually Embassy Row. And I was just talking about the Ray Rice thing, having watched a bunch of sports TV and seeing women. Every time a woman was on screen, I was like, all right, what's she going to say about this? But always I kept watching them have to toss to a dude. And then watch dudes who are brilliant on football, just fumble their way, pardon the pun, through a conversation about something that's very, very difficult to talk about. It's difficult to talk about if you know it inside and out. It's impossible to talk about if you don't understand it. It being domestic violence. It's just there's landmines everywhere. You could be doing real harm at any minute if you're not really conscious of the conversation that you're having. And also, just as a female sports fan, I'm like, I want to hear what the host thinks. Let me hear from her now. I just want to know what she thinks. If you're allowed to be wrong, maybe she'll be wrong, but let her be wrong too, because she probably has an opinion. And so I was just kind of venting about that. And then Greg was like, you should write that down and say that, because like everyone's saying all different things about this topic, but that's kind of about people talking about this topic. Like, that might be actually interesting. And I remember saying, like, that's not interesting at all. People are going to be like, duh, lady, obviously. And he's like, no, I think it's going to be interesting. And so I said it. And I told a story about that I didn't want to tell, about how I had met Roger Goodell at like a press conference thing where we were allowed to ask questions, and I had a million questions and I didn't ask any because I felt like it wasn't my place to speak up, and that now I know it is my place. And like, we put that video out and the reaction was like crazy. And so I think when you say that I was honest, that means a lot to me, because like the hardest thing about this job for me is figuring out when people are going to care or not. Like, I know what I think, but I'm like, I don't know if that matters or if that's going to cut through or if anybody's going to say anything. And there were a lot of people who responded to those Greg Hardy videos and Ray Rice videos with like, oh, you're so brave, Katie. You're saying domestic violence is bad. And I'm like, yeah, that's how I feel. That's why it actually doesn't take that much bravery to say it, because to me, I'm like, of course this thing is bad.
Yeah.
So it is funny when I get criticisms from people that are like, what do you think, you're brave? And I'm like, no, I think this is common sense. That's why I'm saying it so passionately on television. But that means a lot to me that you said.
No. And I feel like, on the other hand, like, you've always embraced criticism, just in whether it be a tweet.
I hate myself, I think, is mostly where that comes from. I've got a lot of self-hatred. So yes, there's nothing you can say to me that I haven't said worse to myself.
But how do you just find that perfect pivot that you just go off in sometimes? Like, you'll just pivot and it's like, oh, that's good. Because
with, like, trolls and stuff.
With the trolls, I mean, you deal with a lot of trolls, and I feel like, especially when you're kind of fighting that like bro Bible-esque vibe, these guys who are like, all right, you little girl, and it's the way that you pivot, and it's hilarious because I end up seeing it where these guys are like, oh, burn, dude, and I'm like, okay, like, please sit down.
Yeah.
But these guys like think like, oh, she got this guy, but it's like, yeah, of course, because this guy shouldn't have even been in the conversation.
Yeah. So that's my thing, right? There's a couple angles to dealing with trolls for me. And also, anything I've ever said in any interview about my perspective on social media is different the next time I give an interview because every day, it's an everyday thing. It's like a second world that exists parallel to our world. It's like you're a person online and you're a person in the real world. So like I'm probably going to disagree with these opinions in mere weeks, but here they are. My thing is like, the thing I love the most and the thing I want to do most is make people laugh. Like, making people laugh, finding that twist or that thing that's going to make someone go, oh my God, I never would have thought of that, and just like smile to themselves, gives me a rush, like nothing else in the world. And so when I see somebody being nasty to me, and I used to read them and they would really, really affect me, and I would be outwardly being like, those don't affect me, but I could feel it. Like it was messing with me, and like messing with my perspective of myself, which is very, very scary. When you start to look down, you see your feet aren't on the ground anymore. And you're like, uh-oh, I need to remember before I let these people define who I am. Then I got to a point where like, I just started thinking about the people differently. I started thinking about what would compel me to go online and at somebody and tell them a harsh thing that I think about them. And like, if I would even really care that much. Like, yes, I'm sending this tweet, but I'm not really thinking about it. Like, I'm Katie Nolan sitting at home thinking about this mean thing somebody said to me all day. And that person probably tweeted something mean to like 15 people. He probably, if I asked him, why'd you say that mean thing? He'd be like, I don't even remember what mean thing I said. It's just like, I'm assigning too much meaning to this thing and to this person. So then now where I've gotten to is like, if this person's going to tell me they don't like me or, sexually harass me or something, then what would be the best revenge would be to take the thing that's them not endorsing me and use it to make a funny enough joke that a new person out there becomes a fan of me. Like, that's going to piss off that troll more than anything, to know that I wouldn't have been able to make this very funny joke if it weren't for your very mean tweet. And now you hate me and 3 new people like me. You did this. You did that. So that's why I'm like, look, I'll just make fun of it. And I'm not, and a newer thing for me, a thing I had to learn was like, it's not about making fun of them, because sometimes you'll find, we're a country that
then you look like the bully.
Yes. And also we're a country that likes to say we care about mental illness, but when we see it in the wild, we're very quick to just call it something else. We're very hesitant to say this could be a person who's really struggling with something. And so like, I'm not like out here dunking on somebody so that people will respond to them. Sometimes people have responded to the people and I'm like, don't do this. Don't harass him. Let's have our fun with this joke over here. Don't respond to that guy or girl. Sometimes it's a woman, who's to say. It's mostly always a guy, but
with a car selfie.
Yes. Or with a dog, or himself with sunglasses, or it's a bird or whatever.
Big Oakley energy.
Yeah. Oh, Oakley's.
Sorry,
poor Oakley's.
I'll cut that out.
They had a real come up and then an immediate come down. Like their image has changed since when I was little. Oakleys were the jam, and now they mean something. Just not
now they're Twitter trolls. Yeah. I'm sorry, I cut you off in a good tangent.
No, yeah, you're right. It's like, this is the way I deal with them is just like, let me use them as fuel for something that I actually am here to do. If you're going to come to this website and try to talk about my boobs, I'm on this website to make people laugh. So I'm going to take the thing you said about my boobs and I'm going to use it to make people laugh.
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm here for. That's what I like to do.
That's troll math. You've come up with troll math.
Is this a troll drag equation?
One doesn't like you and now 3 like you. So it's troll math. I mean, I love that. And that should be taught in school.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's start that. This could be school.
Yeah.
School looks like this now because we're in a pandemic. Is it over yet? I don't understand what's happening.
Well, and that's honestly like why I love that you're so open to talk about these harder things, because, and I did read something recently where you were saying you didn't like the cool girl attitude you used to have and how you wanted to change that. But I get that, because for so long, and especially when social media was like on the rise, it was like you felt like you kind of had to play this role of like, oh no, I'm the cool girl. Like, this is who I am.
Most girls like wine, but I chug beers. Or like, I actually don't have any girlfriends. Most of my friends are guys.
Yeah, like I don't know why girls fight with girls. Like I don't do that. Yeah,
I don't even like the color pink. And like I've never seen Real Housewives. That's garbage. I'd much rather watch the Cowboys play the Giants. And you're like, okay, we get
Bachelor or Monday Night Football.
Yeah, you're better than everyone else. We get it. It's weird. I've talked to so many girls girls and women who are into sports, who almost all of them went through, for any varying length of time, that phase where you really felt like, and it's because we're messaged that women are one way and men are another way. So if you're this way, but you are a girl, then something's up and you've got to figure out, like, you got to pick a side. And it's like, you don't have to pick a side. Somebody made up this weird binary that we're supposed to like pink and we're supposed to paint our nails and we have to shave our legs, which really sucks. We really got the shit end of that stick. I wish we were not the ones that had to shave our legs. But anyway, I digress. Like, we've been told that we have to be these things and we absolutely don't. And like, that was a moment. It sounds so obvious now. Everything in life that is so much easier than it sounds like it's going to be. But like, I remember realizing like, oh yeah, I don't have to do this. I can just be a girl that sometimes likes pink in certain situations. That doesn't mean I'm not who I think that I am. It just is a color. I can be a girl that likes sports who also likes to wear makeup. Like, that's allowed and okay, and it has nothing to do with anything. Just be that and worry about yourself and don't worry about other people. It's a weird thing that women are taught to dislike each other because we're competition. We all have to try to get a guy, and that guy's only going to like you if you play to your strengths and play to her weaknesses.
Well, in the competition thing, I mean, that's so brutal. It's just so much to unpack there, because I truly think, like, even the guys who are like, no, I support women in sports. It's like, but do you? Like, because you only have one on set, like all these different things that are so obvious. That's a whole nother thing. But I do feel like what you kind of brought up is like from 14 to 22, there's this misconception that we have to be one dimensional.
Yes.
Like, it's like, okay, you play sports. And you're the cheerleader, and then you are the drama person. And so you kind of like go into adulthood with this like image, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm the sports person. Like, I have to do this. Like, I was talking to my sister about that because she's a musician, and she's like, I've always been the musician.
Oh, yeah.
So I never even cared to learn sports because that wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
And so, but it's very hard, especially now with social media, where these women are so, even though they want to be empowering, and I think inside they all want to be that.
Yeah.
It's like, why are you attacking like this group? And I'm so bad about it yesterday. I was like shaming people for caring about Kardashians, and I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, that's true. You're going to keep doing that. There's still moments where I catch myself and I'm like, oh shit, I'm doing the thing that it's because it's a habit. It's muscle memory. Your brain is a muscle, and it falls into those same grooves where it's like, this is the path that this has always followed, so I'm going to follow this path. And you have to consciously be like, no, sorry, I'm doing that thing. I do that now I'm always catching myself with like, oh, I'm being heteronormative. Like, that's a thing I'm just used to doing, and I have to step back and remind myself not to be. It's the same thing with any like privilege that you have or anything about your identity that you want to be more conscious about. You just actively have to stop yourself, and also not beat yourself up when you make mistakes, because you're going to slip up, and like, that's how you get to a point where you're not even going to try to fix it anymore, if you just beat yourself up all the time.
So after you made it, and I'm only saying that because I feel like you would disagree with me of saying that you made it. And honestly, like, what is making it?
I have no idea. People know who I am, and I have a lot of followers on a website that is a hellscape, I guess.
It can be a hellscape for sure.
I made it.
So after you made it, did you make any mistakes where you felt like, oh, I'm off track?
I don't want you to think this pauses. I'm trying to figure out if I've ever made a mistake. I've made millions of mistakes.
Perfect me.
My hot dog, let me check. I think I've got a perfect record. No, I'm just trying to think if any of them are like mistakes. Because the weird thing about a mistake is like the further away from it you get, the more it looks like
you're grateful for it.
Yeah, the more it looks like more it looks like you just made a left turn, whereas you thought you were making a right. You ended up somewhere else. You came out of it. Like, I was always, when I was younger, I was so afraid to fail. And I'm saying when I was younger so that I can pretend that I'm over that and then I have no fear of failure now, which isn't even remotely true. But I'm trying to teach myself to be more willing and almost excited to fail, but to fail quickly so that you can move on to the next thing and learn. Because you really don't learn and grow unless things are bad. Like, not bad, but different types of bad, like uncomfortable, or if they're like challenging or scary. Like, those are the moments where you see like, oh, I can do this, or I can't do this, and I should go move on and do something else. So like, there have been mistakes. There have been moments where like we're in one now. And also I was in one at the end of my time at Fox when I was in a contract. I couldn't work anywhere else. And I also had nothing to do at Fox. So I was just sitting there, employed but unemployed, which is kind of similar to what is happening at this point in my life. And it's like, these are scary for me. This is where a person who've always dealt with like anxiety and depression, this is where things get really tough, because I'm like defining my life by work. And then when work stops completely, I'm like, who am I? Which is just
your dog mom.
It's just I'm now a dog mom, which is I have to get things to keep myself busy so that I don't feel like I'm losing, like I've spent all this time working towards some goal that now might not even exist anymore. It's just scary and it's tough. So I would say like mistakes are more for me like setbacks, things that I've like let myself think about too much or like worry about too much, or situations where I'm not, once the ball is rolling down the hill, I'm good. But if it's not, then I'm just kind of sitting there, not moving, which is like you shouldn't do that. You should move.
Yeah, but honestly, I think that happens more when you are a career-focused person, and it's like all of a sudden you're like, "Oh shit." Like, I was talking to someone the other day, your Instagram bio is like what you identify yourself with most of the
Yeah.
time. And so it's a lot of times when people have a big career, that's the first thing.
Yeah.
But a career is so, subjective. It's like, well, pandemic, bye.
Yeah.
Like, it's so hard. But
Yeah.
I misphrased that question because it should have been just like, when's a time where you just feel that like halt, or like, where's the next step?
Yeah.
Because that's really scary.
Yeah. And I've spoken to some younger women that are like at that point right now in their professional careers where they're like, okay, I'm not going anywhere from where I'm at. So I got to pick with my next thing. And how do I pick? And I'm like, I have no idea. I wish there was an answer that you're like, yes, that's the like troll math. I wish I could figure out the troll math of how to figure out where you're supposed to go with your life. One thing for me that has been important and something I try to always do is like sharpen my instincts. Because the thing about being human is like you have instincts. Just like a turtle, right, is born and tries to go to the water. It just knows to do that. But because, pollution and stuff, now we've messed up turtles. We don't have to get into that. But they just know instinctively to go towards the water. They know, like, don't eat that. They know to flare out their whatever. They have instincts. And like humans have those too, but we've built this society on top of our existence. And that's all we deal with is like those layers like money and like business, like all that stuff that's on top of just like living and existing as a human. And so this might sound all very insane, but I think that like we have to remember and carry into that second layer of life, like the money and business and working and stuff like that, the instincts we have as human beings. Like, when something's right and when something's wrong. And like every correct choice I've made in my career has been because I followed my instincts, because I stuck to my guns, quote unquote, about something. And it was just because I was like, no, this doesn't feel right, or this does feel right. And like your instincts can be in so many different walks of your life, but it's just like listening to yourself and like being absolutely present in a moment, or like taking time out of your day to reassess your worldview on things and just make sure you know who you are and what you stand for, so that every decision just sort of, you can let your body feel which way to go. And then you don't have to constantly be trying to make a decision and like run all of these crazy equations to try to figure out which you should do. It's like, you just will know. You'll know in your heart because you will have a full assessment of yourself. Am I talking about nothing? I've been alone in my house for like 6 months. So this is where we're at.
No, I mean, that is exactly right, because it's eye-opening to me to hear that you ever felt that way at Fox, because any outsider looking in is like, oh, well, yeah, of course she makes this like leap, hop, and jump, because, you don't keep up with someone's day-to-day life. You just see like the tentpole things, right?
Course.
Like, oh,
which
new
we
job
forget,
here.
which the people forget. Like I forget that
1000%.
Other people don't care about 100% of my life. They only see these little flashes. Like they miss
1000%. So it's like when I'm like, oh, Katie's at ESPN now, makes sense. Like in my head, I'm like, natural move, but you're like, man, that was a 3-year process. I have no idea. So it's just so interesting. And that's what I love that you said when you're talking to younger people, because you're just like, I mean, again, I'll never forget when you sent me that email. Of course, like I'm fortunate now where I get different emails. And I was talking to this girl the other day, and she was 22 and she graduated college. She's like, so like, when do you figure out this purpose? Like, how do you know your purpose? And I was like, well, I'm 28. Like, I've been in the career world for 6 years and I have no fucking clue what my purpose is. Like,
right.
It's just like, that's how it happens. It's like, okay, like, but in your head, you're like, no. Like, after I graduate college, like, this purpose thing is going to come at my door.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to say, like,
hi, it's
that
me,
test.
Your life's purpose.
That's exactly. Yeah, and it's like, that's why we took that test, where it was like, oh, all this unknown stuff. It's like, it's figured out because like it told me I was going to be in personal services. So if you don't know what that means, it's a little inappropriate.
You're talking to a person who's decided her future theoretically on one online multiple choice test, and you nailed that. It's because I went, I don't have to figure it out. Some website's going to figure it out for me. And then I just listened to them. Who the hell is Princeton Review? What do they know about me? Nothing.
But we were conditioned to, because I clearly remember like that junior year, it was like, should we like, figure out what college or like take this test? It was like, well, take this test.
Yeah.
Like it was almost like a cosmopolitan test that was like, mostly A's, firefighter, mostly B's, like nail tech.
It's basically
like
MASH,
mostly
but in a magazine. Did you play MASH when you were a kid, or are you too young? God.
Oh, I played MASH. I still do sometimes when I'm bored. Mansion all the time.
Yes.
And then also it's like, if you're male, business.
Oh yeah, business. Like, it's any type of business you'd like, but business. It's business for you.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, and I'm sure you would feel this way, like the YouTuber thing. Now that's just a label for me to say that you made videos on the internet.
Yeah.
But in the same sense, when I was coming out of college, it was like, well, Erin Andrews is the only sports broadcaster. It was like, and that's the only like person that you can be if you want to go into sports. And now I'm like, no, there's women who do these awesome sales jobs and all these different things that no one had any clue about. So it's very common. And I think that's where I struggle when I'm talking to these younger girls, because they're like, yeah, like I know I want to do broadcasting, and I've like seen you do these kind of like social media-esque. When I was coming out and doing social media, that was an absolute joke.
Yeah.
People thought that was such a joke.
Why?
Because it wasn't considered a job. It was just considered a hobby.
That's
and then
so
when it
strange.
was like, oh, now
so
it's
backwards.
everything.
Yeah.
That was 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's
like,
nuts.
It's crazy. And so it's funny to me now because they're like, oh, that's what I want to do. And I'm like, yeah, but like, think you're 6 years younger than me. Who knows what your thing
you don't like, we didn't even know what Snapchat was a few years ago, and then now it's like you can have a show on it. It's like you don't know what's going to happen in 5 years. You also, the other way, don't know what's going to happen in 5 years. This whole industry could be done. Like, you don't really know. Everything changes all the time technologically. So it's like, that's why my thing, I was always mad at myself in school growing up because I never had goals. Like, that makes me sound like I just didn't want to do anything.
No,
but it was very hard for me to set a goal, because I felt like once I set a goal, I was ruling out every other possibility. They just felt really limiting to me. And I didn't even have like the consciousness to understand that's why I didn't like them then. I know that now. Back then I just was like, these make me uncomfortable. I don't know why I don't like setting a goal. And like, I always felt separate from everybody from that, because everybody knew what they wanted, or like at least could say, in 5 years, I'd like to be married. And I'm like, well, what if I don't meet the right guy till 6 years from now? I don't want to say I'm going to do it in 5, because the next guy might be the guy. So like, I realize now that that's why I live my life the way I do, which is like, take the coolest opportunity present to me at the moment, and then like really, really try at it. Like really try to crush it. No matter if like, don't make excuses about it. Don't say your staff isn't big enough, or you don't have the budget, or the network doesn't care about your show at all and they don't promote it. Like, okay, you know all that, but do the best you can with it. Like, kill yourself to make the best possible thing. And then if it doesn't work out, go to the next thing, that the best possible option available to you. So like, when people are like, what do you want to do? What's your end game? I'm like, well, if you ask me if I want to host a late night show on a major network, yes is the answer. But if you ask me if I want to, host this other thing over, like, maybe yes is the answer to that too. I don't have a singular goal, which is very difficult, because I should, and then I could just stop wasting time on things. But for me, it's just, I'm ADD. And I didn't find that out until way late in my life. And once I did, I was so grateful, because I was like, this is what has been the problem all along. I had no idea. I thought it was like my brain is broken, or I thought it was like I'm lazy. And now I'm like, no, it's you have an issue. And once I figured that out, I was like, oh, I can stop making myself try to do things the way other people do them, and just accept that I do them differently, and that's okay.
Well, and I don't laugh because I'm like, oh, you have an issue. I'm like, yes, like, I'm so grateful for you to say that, because there are so many people that have issues. And again, I put this in quotations because I was talking to someone the other day, and they're like, yeah, like through this quarantine, I've had depression. And I was like, it's not something you have to whisper about. Like, everybody has it. And and ADD is in there in the mental health scape.
Oh yeah.
And people just want to, like, I remember growing up as like, oh, that kid has ADDs, like, won't shut up. It was like, that was that kid. And so it's so interesting now
That I
as I
won't shut
think
up. I completely agree with you.
all of this is making sense. I mean, you're
Yes, it
proving your
adds up.
point. No, but what I'm saying is, like, as we're discovering things, that all we want is understanding,
Yes.
right? We just want to get an understanding of why we do things, where we're going, what's happening. And then the hard thing is that, but no one wants to talk about mental health because it's like, oh, that's an ugly thing. Like, you have
Oh,
to
and I
like go,
can't see it and I can't measure it. So I can't really understand it. And also
yeah,
the mental health, there's like health and then there's your mental health. And it's like those things are related. Your heart's an organ, your brain's an organ. Your organ is misfunctioning or misfiring or functioning differently or needs to be treated differently. And everyone's like, oh, it's just in your head. It's like, yes, it is, which is
yeah.
also science. It's still science in there inside of my brain.
Well, and I really enjoy your point, and I wish I could had all the time in the world to elaborate on it. But it's like, you're so right. These bullies that we have in our country, why are they bullies? Because something
Something
happened in their
happened. Yeah,
life.
but see now you've got to go down this road of treating everybody like they're human, and that's much harder than
We
being
don't
able
want to
to be
do
like
that.
you're bad, and so I don't have to give you anything.
Yeah, and
Easier.
you're a number.
Mm-hmm.
You're a
You're a
number.
number,
Like,
a statistic that does not matter to me. I have these people, these types of people who meet my characteristics to care about, and I like them, and you are a bad.
yeah. Well, I was talking to a girl the other day, and I'm guilty of this too. So as I say this, don't act like I'm like, "Ugh, I'm so non-caring of this." But she was like, "Man, I posted this fire pic and I only got 200 likes." And I was like, "Do you know how many people
It's a
200
lot of
people is?"
people.
And then how many people saw it that didn't like it?
Yeah, that
And all
probably
these,
or like saw it or showed it to someone like, look how good she looks in this picture. I'm so
yeah, like, I'm
mad
not gonna
I'm
like
not
it
gonna
just to
like it.
do it.
Yeah. Tons of people
But
saw it and loved it.
if that was like in person, if you had 200 people that just knocked on your door right now and said, "Katie, you're beautiful,"
Oh,
you'd be like,
Katie, let's
"What
do that.
the hell?"
Give me that.
Yeah, I'm
I need
gonna send that
face-to-face
telegram.
compliments. I miss them.
So, but we've lost the figure, like, understanding that people are, even though, yes, they're a number on social media or they're a number on TV, like, that still matters.
Yeah.
And so those people matter. And the things that you're posting, whether you realize or not, matters.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so interesting to see, the more people who do talk about mental health or just talk about life as what it really is,
Mm.
that's impacting more people. And hopefully as more young people are on social media, they actually are kind of absorbing that truth a little. Do you talk about like different mental health things like with your coworkers? Because for me, it's like I'll try to bring it up to some athletes or something. And I just notice like there's this instant like, "Ugh," like, why did you bring that up?
Yeah,
Like you
I
just,
I pretty much talk about it everywhere I go because it's on my mind all the time as a person whose mind is crippled by mental health issues. But I think it's honestly like a minor life hack is don't say the words mental health. It's weird, but people shut down the
yeah,
same way if you say
mental feels that way.
mental, social justice, activism, any of these words that feminism that make people go like, oh, I don't want
Like,
to participate in a conversation about that. But if you're like, hey, do you ever sometimes feel this sense that like your heart's in your throat and your skin gets kind of prickly and your brain goes a little bit fuzzy when you're really stressed about something? And people are like, oh my God, yeah, I have them for extended periods of time. Like, cool, now we're talking about anxiety, but I haven't said any of the words yet. So like nobody's freaking out and running away. Like I think I've had conversations with athletes that are about mental health, but they just look like conversations about them and their careers. But it's like, I know what I'm doing. I know what we're talking about. And it's just like trying to raise an awareness of like, it's okay to talk about this kind of stuff. Like you have a really
yeah,
tough life and people boil it down for athletes all the time to like, you get paid a ton of money to play a game. And it's like, you know how hard it is to play that game at that level? I would argue that it's harder than what you do on a day at your job. It just is. Like you can sit at your desk and phone it in for a day if you want to, if you have a desk job. You can take one day where you're like, I'm hungover, I'm giving it 50%. You can't really do that if you're an athlete because you'll get cut and then there goes all of your money. So it's like, plus everyone's watching you. Everyone's watching you at work. And then there's people who have it, whose entire job it is to criticize how good you are at your job. And they talk about you at work as their job all day. That's crazy. If there was somebody watching me, analyzing me do my job, and then they went out on TV and talked about how good or bad I was at TV, I would watch it obsessively and be like, you don't even know what you're talking about. Like, that's crazy. That's a very difficult job, and we never really allow athletes to complain about their job because it's sports. But like, as soon as you meet an athlete and you kind of just go like, today sucks for you, huh? That you just immediately see them, like, their faces melt and they're like, yeah, thank you. It does suck for me, but I can't say that. Like, it's everybody's just a person.
Yeah.
It's just a person.
It's so weird. I mean, it's one, so true. I mean, I need to just stop the mental health. I need to find like this other word, like brain fog. Do you ever get that? You know, and then
just
people
talk
are like,
about what it is that you feel. Like, for me, depression is like, I can't get out of bed. That's what it looks like for me. There are days where I'm like, I cannot today. And like, I've had boyfriends in the past who are like, what do you mean? Get out of bed. And luckily right now I have a boyfriend who's like, okay, I'll take care of the dog. You let me know if you need anything, but like, I'll just be in the other room. We'll just stay out of your hair. Like, it's having to explain it all the time is very difficult, because when you're anxious or when you're depressed, you don't want to do the things you want to do, for depression specifically. And so it's like, you don't want to talk. And you certainly don't want to have to try to describe something that you yourself can't even describe. You're just like, I feel like I'm in a prison and I don't want to leave. I just want to sit here and I don't want to move, and my body hurts, but at the same time it doesn't. And I can't feel anything, but I feel pain. I don't know. So you just don't want to talk about it. But that's why, like, talking about it when you're doing well or when you're able to is important. What am I talking about? Nothing.
That's so impactful, and I'm so grateful for you sharing that. I mean, I really hope that whoever is listening understands that, like, it is okay. It is seriously okay.
It is.
I mean, and I like how you said that you have to talk about it when you're well, because that's so true. You know, it's very comfortable to understand it when you're not going through it, and then when you're going through it, you're like, why can't I remember what I was just saying 2 days ago?
Yeah.
But there's also this thing where you're getting better, you just don't realize it.
Yeah,
You're getting
absolutely.
stronger. And in that moment, it's like, okay, I'm there. Because and so many people have just like come to this conversation now with the pandemic. Naturally, I get it. Quarantine, it happens. But in the same sense, it's like, well, it was always there. It's just, I wonder what you were calling it, you know?
Yeah.
The bad days or stress. It's like, stress is just the umbrella that everyone's comfortable with saying.
That is various things of mental health that are like, and this is the thing that I think is so important, is like, you don't have to know the answer, but there might be somebody out there who does. And isn't that comforting to know that, like, whatever's going on in your brain, you should talk to somebody about it, because someone might, worst case scenario, somebody might go, oh, I know what that is. And if you do this thing, or if you try this pill, or if you do this life change, you're going to notice that thing is going to feel better. Like, somebody out there might have the answer. To me, there's not many things that are much more comforting than knowing somebody out there might have the answer. I think about young me, who was like 10, 11, 12, and was really smart, but never was doing well in school. Or it was like a real struggle for me to do well in school. And teachers were like, you know, she's got a lot of potential, but I don't know what her deal is. And it was messaged to me as laziness. I thought I was lazy. I thought I didn't care. I thought I was apathetic. And then I got diagnosed ADD, and I was like, wow, I really wish younger me could know she's not a lazy piece of garbage. She just has ADD. She's actually so interested in everything that she has a hard time doing anything, because her brain is so interested in anything that comes up in front of it. It's so curious that it can't follow a path because it keeps starting a new one. Like, once somebody told me that, it, like I said before, it unlocked my ability to live my life the way that I should have been living it, tailored to what goes on in my brain, instead of trying to change my brain or feel bad about what's going on in my brain because it doesn't fit this one size fits all way you're supposed to live your life. And someone had that answer and I didn't. And I talked to them and I got it. And that was when I started being able to be like, I live this life. It's my life. And I found success. And like,
how old were you?
It was when I had left New York. So
you were in your 20s.
I'd graduated college. I'd lived in New York for a year. I moved back to my home, but my grandmother had moved into my room, so I moved into her condo. So I lived in my grandmother's condo in my hometown. It was right before I started my blog. Like that was the moment that I was like, I'm depressed. I went to the doctor because I said I have a family history of depression. I went to the doctor. I'm like, I think I'm terribly depressed. And the doctor asked me a bunch of questions, and then he was like, have you ever been tested for ADD? And I said, no. And he was like, okay. So we tested, we talked about it. And then he was like, yeah, you have ADD 100%. And like, you might also have depression. This is what he said at the time. He's like, you might also have depression or anxiety, but it's also possible that you think you have depression because of your ADD. So let's get you medicated for your ADD, and then we'll monitor your depression. And it was like, okay. It was like, this person knows what's and look, you're going to get a doctor sometimes who sucks. That's another thing that sucks, is that there are bad medical professionals, and you might go and the person won't explain it to you, or they won't listen to you and you won't like it. Try a different doctor, talk to a different person. Like, there is maybe somebody out there with your answer that can help you. And if it can help you, then you should try it, because I'm telling you, things in my life have actively changed once I figured out that I was ADD. And I'm still learning what that means and how that affects my life. But it's like, if I didn't know that, I would still be sitting here thinking that I'm lazy and the worst. I never would have started my own blog. I never would have even walked down this path. I'd be working in PR somewhere, probably, maybe, or not working. I don't know. But like, mental health is super important. You should know who you are.
You might be throwing feces at your friend.
I could be. I could absolutely see myself throwing my own shit at Hannah's office. 1,000%.
I kind of think it was one way or the other. It was blog or feces.
That was it. Those were that was it. Choices, and I chose the path less traveled.
It's a beautiful one. Would you say that humor is your coping mechanism?
Yes. Would you say that humor is my coping mechanism?
I would say that. I just wanted to confirm for the audience that yes. And this is an invisible audience, but you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
like,
humor is a things to me. Humor is like lifeblood. Humor to me is how you make friends with somebody that you have nothing in common with. Humor is the act of bringing joy into someone else's life. And I don't know how it feels for everybody else. I don't know if everyone feels the same way I feel about when I make someone laugh. Because when I make someone laugh, I feel like someone's just patting me on the back, being like, you did what you were supposed to do. Like, you
done good, girl.
Yeah, you did. It's like a nice atta girl from the universe. Anytime I can make someone laugh, like, my body gets warmer, my cheeks like get tighter. I just am so happy to make another person laugh, because everything right now, but in general, is like there to make you cry, or to make you angry, or to make you stressed. And like, humor is tough. Humor is tough because it's very easy to veer off into negative humor and to like make fun of people or to punch down. To do those things isn't just bad. It's also very easy. It's very easy to do. That's why people do it a lot. But that moment that you figure out the joke, the moment I can figure out, like, that's it. I think my posture changes, because I'm like, I got it. There are times where I'll send tweets that I'll be like, that's it, I'll send it. And then a minute later, I'll read the tweet and I'll go, that word should have been that word instead. That would be a lot funnier if you had said indeed instead of course. Man, okay, get it better next time. Like, I'm obsessed with it. I love making people laugh. But it's so funny because I'm like, growing up, you're always told, like, if you're funny, don't ever say you're funny. Don't identify as funny. Don't talk about being.
It's like funny. A bragging thing.
Yeah. It's like a woman saying she's pretty. It's like, but yes, I would say humor is my coping mechanism. I would say it's my like love language. I would say that it's my best friend. I would say that it's
your water.
Yeah. It's just the thing.
Legitimately what keeps you going.
I appreciate it so much. Like, that's why whenever people have asked me throughout my career, like, why don't you do stand-up comedy? I'm like, because I have so much respect for it that I don't think I could ever do it. But I love it, and I watch it obsessively. And I now date it, which is neat, but not on purpose. So, yeah, I think humor is like the key to everything, because it's the only thing that could get two people who hate each other to like, oh, well, you can both appreciate that that's funny, right?
We both laughed. Yeah. It's like, oh, like, I despise you, but we chuckled.
We both laughed.
Yeah. Okay, fun question.
Oh, is that a real fun question, or is that a bad fun question?
No, this is really fun. Okay. But I was looking back at how I wrote this, and I was like, oh, you're besties with the U.S. soccer team. And I was like, oh, wait, like, I didn't classify that they were the women's soccer team. Like, I was like, she'll know. Because
I don't have a single friend on the men's soccer team.
You and the
like
men's soccer team are not tight.
I only like winners.
I mean, and that's the funny thing, because in any other sport, you have to put like, oh, so you play like WNBA or like LPGA, like all these different women leagues. It's like, but you would never think about that, like with women's soccer team. Like, I said that only to classify that that's who I was referring to, but I could genuinely just say U.S. soccer team, and I immediately think Megan Rapinoe. Like, it's just an instant thought.
Yeah. Because she's.
Is it as magical? Just like, share this.
Yes.
Like,
it's so.
I feel 1 degree separated now.
Here's the thing is like, I am still not just like, oh yeah, it's like, whatever, it's chill. Like, what do you want me to tell you? Like, I'm like, no, it's so cool. Like the other day I got off TV and I had 3 texts from Megan Rapinoe and it was about something I had said on TV. And I just was like, thanks, Megan. Like, I'm so bad at it. Like, I don't hide it well at all. Like, I get fucking hyped when they talk to me, which is so weird because I'm not like a celebrity worship person. I'm like, very often when I'm interviewing somebody, if it's on my turf, I feel very comfortable. I've never really been freaked out by a guest. But if it's not on my show, if I'm out in the wild and I'm talking to somebody else, then I'm like, I don't know. The first time I met Megan Rapinoe, I hid because I was so excited that she was so close to me, and I hid. And Michael Davies, who's a host of Men in Blazers, but he was also the executive producer of Garbage Time, was like, Megan, I want you to meet somebody. And I was shooting him a look from behind a wall going, don't, because I was having a panic attack. And then he introduced us, and she was the nicest person in the world. And then now I have her number, and we text sometimes.
She watches you on TV.
And Her and Sue Bird and I have hung out at parties, and it's very cool, and they're very nice, but they're also just people. And I think I get most excited when I hear from these people or to know these people, because I'm like, it's such a relief to know your people, that you're just people, that you're just normal people. And you think I'm insane because I like you so much. And they're the best. They're just, I mean, a lot of times with women athletes, what I've found, female athletes, is that like, they've always had to be good at all of it. They could never really be. That's why Ronda Rousey was so crazy when she first started with UFC, and she like didn't want to do press. Like, women were never really told they just couldn't do something. It was like, you better be really good in interviews, because you're going to have to be charming, beautiful, and the best at your sport for the media to give a shit. So be all of it. And like,
whereas Conor McGregor could be the exact opposite.
Yeah, and so when Ronda Rousey came out and was like, I'm not doing interviews, people hated her because like, how dare she? And it's like, a man can do that and a woman can't. And so like, in general, whenever I talk to female athletes, I'm blown away by like, you are really, really smart, really thoughtful. You think before you speak. You say very interesting things, and you could dunk on most people. Like, it's nuts to have both talents, because, you know, I think we forgive a lot with athletes of like, we've forced them to forego school for like their bodies, for what they need to do with their physical bodies. Like, you know, that's how we can rectify head injuries in football. It's like, well, they smash, but it's not. But like with female athletes, they don't get that same thing. At the same time, the negative side of that for a male athlete is we expect them all to be dumb. We just like are like, it's okay that you're dumb. And sometimes a male athlete is like, I'm smart and I want to talk.
Well, like, how many times are we like, guys, this guy went to college and he didn't get university studies. He got biology. Like, and it's like, okay, like, cool. You know, there's
this
a lot
NFL
of people
player wants to be a doctor. And you're like, okay, that's good.
That's
good for him.
A story.
Yeah, they can't all be the same. They can't all be just like dumb jocks. But yeah, it's anyway, long story short, it fucking rules being friends with them. They're the nicest, and I love them a lot. And I appreciate them.
That is so awesome.
And also, let's just say, part of the reason they're so great and loving them and being loved by them, I'm just going to say I'm loved by them, liked by them, is great, is because their fan base is awesome. U.S. women's national team stans are I've said this multiple times. They've heard it every time. They're so passionate and they're so nice and they're so woke would be the bad word. They're so just conscious of like people's walks in life and
thoughtful,
respecting them. Yeah, they're just a very good fan base. That like
actually maybe respectful is the word that you just said, because I think that's ultimately the truth, because it's like they're respectful. Now they will go a little crazy.
Yeah, they're
like,
nuts,
I think
but they're like respectful nuts.
Yeah, they're respectful. I mean, they were coming hard with like the tea and the celebrations last year. They're pulling all the same celebrations that other people were doing and comparing it. So I appreciate that, because they have respect for the game.
Yeah.
Remember, everything matters about the game.
Yeah,
that's
what it's meant. But I don't know if it matters when it's meant. I don't know.
There's so much to go into that. I mean, it's funny because I was asking a player the other day about mental health, and I was like, I kind of was asking him, and he brought up a good point. He's like, well, I always think about my brain, because what if I have CTE? And I was like, oh shit, yeah, that thing. Ooh, awkward. Like, yeah, I'm not supposed to talk about that because it could like end football, but
it's like the string on the sweater that you're like, oh, I'll just pull it, because last time I pulled one, it just came right out, and then you pull it, and all of a sudden the sweater is just a pile of string, and you're like damn it, I ruined everything.
It is exactly that. Okay, well, I'll let you go because you have a life, and I appreciate
first of all, don't tell lies on your own podcast. I don't have a life. You're gonna let me go because I have to feed my dog and take her out for a walk.
Guys, she has a great life. She has a club appearance later, a virtual club.
I gotta go get paid $5,000 to show up at a club with a mask and socially distance my ass off at a table with bottle service. No, I'm gonna
the bottle service,
video games, and hang out with my pup.
Well, thank you so much, Katie. I adore the hell out of you, and I just think that everybody needs to have all of your wisdom in their life. Ooh. So thank you.
Wow, that is giving me way too much credit. Thank you for having me. This was really fun and genuinely the first conversation I've had with anybody in 2 days, so I appreciate it.
Thank you. Hey there. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to snap a screenshot of your phone, post it to your Instagram stories, and tag me at Tastern and at Thrivin' in the Wild. I can't wait to see what your favorite takeaway was from this episode.